So up here in Canada, there's a commercial that plays all the time, and it doesn't stop. It's about LG stacked washer dryer, and there's an older lady, there's a guy with a baby, and then there's another lady, and they're singing, "Hey, dirty, baby, I got your laundry," and I see it all the time. I don't even watch a lot of television, but all that being said, I watch that commercial and I go, man, I wonder if the people that are watching this actually know how that song goes with ODB.
Shimmy, yeah.
And then right at the start, it's bad. Now, shimmy, shimmy, ya, shimmy, ya, and shimmy, yay. Give me the mic so I can take it away. That's a different song. But one other ODB song is Ooh Baby, I Like It Raw. And we've got Raw Dog, Brandon Royval, making his re-entry to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, taking on the cannibal Alessandro Pantoja. And Matt, who can't get up for this one?
I'm so excited.
The Fight Night Picks Fight of the Night. I would throw my notes, but for this one, I have odds and that's it, because that's how excited I am for this one. But I had to go back because for Brandon Royval, he was in a title eliminators last time out. He took on Brandon Moreno. That was a lot of fun. It was like, hey, is it going to be one of these two guys? Is Alex Perez going to be able to get it done against Davison Figueiredo? Newsflash. No, not at all.
Level.
So for Brandon Royval, having a little success in that first round, and then he didn't. And then he had a big issue in terms of an injury. The interview that he did with friend of the show, Nolan King, with MMA Junkie, this was from quite a while ago. So the outlook is looking like surgery at this point, Royval recently revealed to MMA Junkie. I have a torn labrum, and I chipped some bones away through repetitive damage of having that torn labrum. It's looking like surgery at this point, which is really unfortunate. If you look at it for Brandon Royval, he's been out for a lot of time, 8 months and 3 weeks, so call it 9 months. He had won in an absolute knock-him-out, drag-him-out fight just a few months before that against Kai Kara France. And for Alessandro Pantoja, a guy that a lot of people have a hard time capping just where he fits in this division. We all know he's a top 10 guy.
Top 5.
But can he be that guy? Can he beat somebody right up there at the tippity top? You look at it in the 5-on-in. He beat Wilson Hayes. He lost to Figueiredo. He beat Matt Schnell. He lost to Askar Askarov. Close enough fight, would you say?
It was.
And then he beat Manel Kopp in a fight where, hey, Manel, just show up. Just show up, and Manel decided not to. And then finally, a few weeks ago, when he missed weight, he did show up. But for Pantoja, he can kind of play your game, which scares you when he takes on a lot of guys. But he's got great power. If he needs to play the volume game, he can. He's one of the more well-rounded flyweights you're going to find. And that's why this guy's had such longevity in the UFC. And he's still only 31, which is crazy because he's had 28 pro fights. For Brandon Royval, again, you look at some of the losses. We're talking really big names. You look at him coming into the UFC. Neither one of us thought he was going to have a lot of success. No. I know I can say that personally, but we said that before we started filming. He beats Tim Elliott back some time ago, start of 2020. Beats Kai Kara France. Almost gets to the top. And then he couldn't. But again, those losses. Casey Kenny, Nick Urso, Ricky Palacios. Like big names. Ben Von Bauer. Wow. Big names. That was back in 2012. Can Brandon Royval come back from a torn labrum in 9 months? We're going to find out.
It's going to be really interesting. And again, people know I love basketball, and I'm going to sound like the Rain Man right now because I know basketball injuries. Paul George had that happen to him, but he had it on both shoulders. Paul George went from being a borderline MVP player in the NBA. And I'm just going to say this right now. If you're a borderline MVP player in the NBA, you're a much better athlete than the majority of people in MMA. It's just the truth. Where the money is where the top level athletes go. That's why guys in the NFL who weigh like 300 pounds and don't look athletic can run like a 5'4", or can run like a 4 or 5'40".
What are you saying about like Connor McDavid and Shohei Ohtani?
They're really good athletes too. No, I'm just saying like MLB, hockey, like the major four North American sports are normally where you find the highest level athletes. And the fact that there was a guy who was a borderline MVP who then came back after a shoulder surgery, he averaged like 18 points per game for a month after that. And that's good, don't get me wrong. But when you're averaging 27 playing for OKC and then you're down to 18 playing for the Clippers, I get it, different systems and whatnot. But the injury had something to do with it. And that's the big problem with injuries, is that it takes you a little bit of time of in-competition action to finally get comfortable with that injury again. Like Brandon Royval, he could spar 1,000 rounds in the gym. He could roll for hours on end. But he's never going to get that same in-cage feeling. Nobody you spar with is going to try to hit you as hard as Alessandro Pantoja is going to. Because that's the thing about Pantoja. It's like Davison Figueiredo is probably the best knockout threat in this division. And right behind him, and I mean right behind him, it is Pantoja. He has that kind of power at this weight division. Go back and watch his fight against Matt Schnell. Like, Matt Schnell can strike a little bit, and it was disgusting. Matt Schnell cracks him with one good shot. Pantoja's like, oh, I have to try in the striking now, flatlines with an overhand. And that really is the type of fighter that you're worrying about when you fight a guy like Pantoja. And it brings me back to one attribute of Brandon Royval's that I don't like, because I can admit it, coming into the UFC, I defined him by that Casey Kenny loss. I thought, hey, he'll never become a better fighter than the guy who got out wrestled by Casey Kenny. The thing I never took into consideration, though, was now him fighting smaller guys to where he can scramble with them now on their takedown attempts is making him that much more effective. Like, look at the Tim Elliott fight. Tim Elliott, I'm sure, is a better pure wrestler than Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval doesn't care anymore. He's letting you take him down just to initiate the scramble because he realizes that the real grappling doesn't start till after both you guys hit the mat. And that's what's going to be interesting in this fight, because Brandon Royval, I'm sure, can strike with Pantoja. I don't think it's his best path to victory, and I think if this is just a kickboxing fight, then Pantoja probably wins it 9 times out of 10. On the mats where it's going to be tricky, though, because I'll be honest, I think Pantoja's striking is like a 9.5 out of 10, and I feel comfortable putting it that high on the scale. His grappling could be anywhere from like a 3 to an 8.5, because with Pantoja, defensively, he does have some trouble against some really good wrestlers. He does get held down sometimes, but then you look at him in other fights where, even in the Askar Askarov fight, like Askar takes him down, but then he can kind of out-grapple him once they hit the mat. It's, for me, I know how good Pantoja is on the feet, and I don't doubt his skills on the mat. It's just that's where my question marks lie in his game, I guess.
Pantoja's been out for about 6 months since he beat Manel Kape. That was Kape's debut. Again, when you talk about Askar Askarov,
they had a great fight.
That guy's an amazing fighter. He's an absolute sambo freak, and I thought...
And his striking's good.
Yeah, I thought he should have been the next guy to get a shot at the title, but who knows? But when we look at all of the fights, for Pantoja to be competitive in those exchanges, Royval is a power grappler. Like, this guy can sink anything up on the mat, and he's an amazing fighter. And yes, can sometimes he fight Jerome Rivera, who falls backwards and breaks his arm? Maybe. But for Brandon Royval, a really good strength of schedule as well. Obviously not as many fights. Obviously not all in the UFC. The thing that makes this very interesting, Pantoja opened a minus 125 favorite. He's a minus 171 right now. I want to hear from you down below in the comment section if you think that's crazy, because for Royval, open a plus 105, he's now at a plus 142. And Matt, before we go into the Tapology votes, I feel like those opening lines, if you considered everything equal, no injuries, I think that makes sense.
I do too, but I gotta be honest, I think Pantoja's better than Royval in quite a few areas. I really do. This is my problem with Brandon Royval. If Kai Kara-France can drop you in their fight, Pantoja's gonna knock you out if he lands clean. I understand Kai Kara-France is a crisp striker, and people love, oh, he's from City Kickboxing, his striking's so good. His striking's not as good as Alessandro Pantoja's. Like, he doesn't throw the leg kicks Pantoja does. He doesn't the power Pantoja does. Like,
ask Rogerio Bontorin.
That's fine, but if Bontorin ever got in a cage with Pantoja, he's getting flatlined. Even after what happened in the Kyler Phillips fight, I feel comfortable saying that. I understand where the odds are, and again, I really do feel like the game of Brandon Royval is going to rely on those scrambles. If they get into scrambles and he ends up on top, then I do think he can out-grapple Pantoja. The issue is that if they get into a scramble and he does end up on bottom, Pantoja hit one of the hardest sweeps you can possibly hit on Askar Askarov. He went for a single leg, went through his legs, and then took his back in the first round. And Askar Askarov is an absurd grappler. Like, he was in there going, like, move for move with a guy like Brandon Moreno. Like, that tells you how good of a grappler he is. Now, in the end, Askar Askarov did win out in those wrestling exchanges against Pantoja, but I don't think Brandon Royval has the same physical strength factor that Askar Askarov does.
Some would say that Alessandro Pantoja was able to flow like water. Matt, 1,163 total votes on Tapology. 62% have Pantoja, 78% by decision for the 38% that have Royval, 43% by decision, 40% by submission. Injuries always scare me, and maybe I put too much into them. Again, like a torn labrum in baseball, you're out for a long time. Now again, whether you're a pitcher, whether you're a fielder, it all depends, but still, that's a really long time. Royval's been out for 9 months. I get it. Who do we have on the channel that was out of Factory X that trained with Brandon Royval? There were different fighters, but still, the point was, this guy has an opportunity to come right back in, settle the score, and reintroduce himself to the top 5 of this division, and really make a mark. Royval wins this fight. We're talking the Askarovs. We're talking those elite fighters. Maybe even a Figueiredo.
And this is what I have to say about this fight, and this will be the last point from me. We had said before we even started recording, and then you brought it up, how I think this should be the main event. Like, I really do think skill for skill, these guys are better than Jared Cannonier and Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum, no one knows if he's 1 foot in or 1 foot out right now. Jared Cannonier, yeah, he got the break speed off him by Robert Whittaker, but that's going to happen to a lot of guys. I really do think that Pantoja and Royval could realistically find themselves in a title fight by the end of next year, depending on how this fight goes. Like, the winner wins this, then you probably fight, like, maybe Askarov. Now, you would assume Askarov probably gets Moreno next, unless they do the trilogy with Figueiredo, but you understand, like, these are those top 5 names in the flyweight division, and I'm gonna say this. Whoever wins this deserves a main event. They do. Flyweight division needs more main events. The last one that I can remember that was a fight night main event was Brandon Moreno versus Sergio Pettis. And that was a phenomenal fight back in the day. And that was before either guy even really got into their prime. And it was still a phenomenal fight.
Before they both became champions.
Exactly. So you're telling me that you wouldn't watch Brandon Royval and Pantoja fight for an extra 10 minutes?
Give us the 5 rounds, Matt.
Exactly.
In this fight, I've got Alessandro Pantoja. I have the injury question marks. I get it. Brandon Royval hits hard. He's great in scrambles. His jiu-jitsu is amazing. He's a great fighter in this division. I just like the well-roundedness of Pantoja. A little bit of the volume, too. And for those reasons, I've got American Top Team Zone, Alessandro Pantoja.
I do, too. But again, this is fight of the night without a doubt. Like, we didn't even talk about what was going to be on the fight of the night screen before Craig was like, well, it's Pantoja and Royval, and then we'll figure out the next one. Like, this is how good this fight is going to be.
Absolutely love it. Both of us going with Brazil's Pantoja. Let us know down below if you've got Royval, if you've got Pantoja. I know you've got in that main event. Cannonier taking on Gastelum. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say.
Let's get into it.